Hello, Kifel Halak, Salamu Alaikum. Thank you to all of you for tuning in. If you're a Muslim and you're watching us, Eid Mubarak to you. We hope that you have a splendid celebration. My abaya today is in honor of today's very, very festive events. What is the personal economy of your pocket? That's the question we are asking today on Spotlight. There's been an increase in food prices in the last few weeks and months. How is it affecting you? How are you able to calculate your state and your personal economy? For me, I usually look at my disposable income and then I juxtapose it with the amount of goods and services that income is able to command. So if you're able to command more or less between months, then clearly there's a variation there. We want to know how the increase in food prices are affecting you. Let us know on social media. We're there at MX24GH. This is Spotlight. We'll be right back after the break.
Go on, my people. Welcome to XK.
A boy's body count and a girl's body count matter differently.
Wow, ladies.
Probably an experience, something that happened.
Is it a deal breaker in a relationship?
No.
The X Cave, and this show focuses on topics that are hot on the lips of our young people and presents it in an open, honest conversation.
Oh, look at him, he's crying, he's such a girl.
In other words, there are no liars on our show.
The man is the head of the home. The man is, quote-unquote, the breadwinner.
We come here with the truth.
We talk of something being toxic. It's something which is harmful or unpleasant.
Stay glued to the television for the hottest show on TV.
Welcome back from that break. We're discussing food crop prices and the recent increases that have been experienced across the markets. Now, as of last year, July 2020, a bag of maize was sold at 160 cedis. We are going by Techiman prices. July of this year, the same bag of maize is being sold at 375 cedis. That's an incredible increase, and we seek to understand why this is happening and if these costs can be reversed in any way. We're going to be speaking to two experts. Francis Ejay Danson, he's a content manager at Isoko. We are also going to be speaking to Edward Karewa, he's General Secretary for the Ghana Agricultural Workers Union. But before we speak to these two gentlemen, we've also been speaking to the Peasant Farmers Association. And please listen to them before we proceed.
That there has been drastic increase in price of various cereals ranging from maize, sorghum, rice, and even tuber. There are increases in price of yam and everything. That's a source of worry. But we saw this coming following what happened in 2020. When the COVID set in, followed by the lockdown activities, it has really affected farmers so much. One, when the importing countries, where we import most of our agro inputs, like the fertilizers, seeds, and then equipment like tractors and others, it also impacted our access to those inputs for production. That's one. Two, within the same period, there was this financial sector restructuring, of which most of the informal banks, like the microfinance companies and then credit unions, where our members easily access credit, were all closed down. It also affected our access to credit to purchase inputs. Apart from that, around the period March to June last year, there was drought across most of the food producing areas. From Afram Place, Water region, you come to the transitional zone like the Chiman, Nkranza, Wenchi, Kintampo, all those areas. So they couldn't produce the major season crops like maize. In the northern part of the country where we saw some potential at the beginning of the season last year, around the period September to October, there was serious flooding, which also reduced the amount of food available in the market. Now, with all these factors, around December, November, January, we saw influx of traders from Burkina Faso, from Togo, from Niger, all of them coming to Ghana to come and buy maize, sorghum, and rice. Even Nigeria, there were a lot of Nigerians in the rice valley buying the rice. So, putting all these factors together, we came out with a statement that government need to come out with an immediate measure. If not, we are likely to face food security challenges around this time. Because every year, around this is always a period where we have food shortages and then price hikes. Because it's the period between when the old stock is getting finished and then also transitioning into the new season. So we put all this together, and I think we didn't really do much in terms of trying to stock ourselves so that this doesn't happen. So that's what we are experiencing now. Last year is gone. Now let's look at what will happen in 2020. So now, the picture so far looks good for northern sector, even though the rains didn't come early. But when we started experiencing rainfall, it has been regular. So most farmers have been able to plant. But we are facing a serious challenge at the moment. There is limited supply of fertilizer. Now you know that the northern part of the country, even though the potentials are there to supply food, but the lands are also infertile. So with our application of fertilizer, things are likely to be low. So we think that, and one of the reasons why there is limited availability of fertilizer, increases in real price of fertilizer, and then government inability to pay money-owned fertilizer companies who supplied under the Planning for Food and Jobs 2020. So if government can quickly put it as part of the mid-year budget to pay all fertilizer companies money owned them, I think most of them can quickly bring in fertilizer. Even though it might not come for those in the northern part of the country, well, the stock that is there can be released to go there, and then those who are producing in the transitional area, that's the minor season production, they will have full access to fertilizer. So when this happens, I think it might help in 2020 and 2022.
And that was Charles Nyaba, he's president of the Peasant Farmers Association. He was weighing in on what he thinks are the causes of increasing food prices in the markets. I mentioned before we took that quick thing. Edward Kariwa is here with us. He's General Secretary for the Ghana Agricultural Workers Union. I'm just going to go to him to find out what the Ghana Agricultural Workers Union also think is causing the increase in food prices before we have this discussion further. Hello, Edward.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Edward. Good evening, actually, Edward. Thank you for joining us. You heard the analysis there by the Peasant Farmers Association, Charles Nyaba specifically. What do you make of his statements, and what do you think?
Well, let me say Baraka de Salah to our Muslim friends and all of you there.
Baraka de Salah to you too.
Yes, the fact remains that multiple factors culminate into what we have today. But what is most important for us is the results. What are the results? The results are that food prices are up, and that is an affirmation of the fact that there's shortage of food in the market. You know, we can go back and do so much analysis as to why it has happened that way. But these analysis and these reasons are well known to us. But then, at the close of the year, we were told that despite all the challenges that bedeviled the production part of agriculture, we still had a good yield, and that maize, for instance, was more than doubled. That is 110% increase in production, in output. So certainly the factors that actually bedeviled the farming season last year and so on, according to the statistics from the Minister of Agriculture, it did not affect output. So if it did not affect output, and just 6 months down the lane, we are in serious shortage of food, then of course, it makes us to worry and doubt the figures that were earlier on giving us a good outcome of the agricultural production within the year.
Right, so you're saying the figures from the Ministry of Agric, you doubt the figures essentially?
They don't reflect what is on the ground. That is the important thing. But if meat production had increased for over 100% of the output, 6 months down the lane, we should not be in this situation that we are now.
Perhaps there's been an increase in production, but there's also been a higher increase in demand, don't you think?
Now they should tell us where the demand comes from. Is it that the population has grown more than that? Is it that? Well, that they should be able to tell us. Otherwise, we are not able to account for why the prices have gone up. It is the shortage of it. And you cannot even find it in the market. Maize is not even in the market. The problem that is there and the price is high. It's not just there at all. So the facts are clear that it's not available and the prices are high.
Right, but if we've had such an increase in such a short time, I mean, this seems quite extra when you compare to previous years. Because just last year, let's go by the maize price that we took from Techiman. 160 cedis, which is the farm gate price, 160 cedis in July, comparatively 375 cedis this July. That's over 100% increase. How is this even possible?
Very good. So how do you juxtapose the over 100% increase in maize price over last year and this year against an increase of maize production over 100% within the same period for last year? So it tells you that there's something wrong. There's something certainly wrong. The figures do not match what is on the ground. And see, we are doing all this because we are seeking to solve the problem on the ground. We are not just concerned about figures. Figures do not put food on anybody's table. You know, the consumers are not concerned about figures. Whether you come out with figures or not, when they go to the market and the maize is there at a lower price, it's what they are concerned about. And that is what policy must be directed at. We cannot just limit ourselves to figures and then forget about what is on the ground. So the results are more important than any other thing we do. How much effort we claim we are making, committed, we claim we are. At the end of the day, where are the results? The result is that the price of food are very high.
Mr. Kariwa, can these prices be absorbed in any way? Because at this rate, it's almost impossible for majority people to afford basic food.
Well, there's little that can be done. What it only means is that many more people will now fall into the poverty line. So below the poverty line, many people will now be poor. They will not be able to afford food, or they have to reduce the quantity of food they eat. And then that is the situation. So instead of people's standard of living going up, it's coming down, because even the basics of food, they are unable to afford it, the quantity, the quality that they want it, because prices have gone so high. And look, we can't also deny the fact that this is in the face of high unemployment in our country. Even those who have got employment, it is underemployment. The incomes they get from their employment cannot even take them for 2 weeks or beyond 2 weeks. Now, the majority of the youth are unemployed. There are no jobs. So all those people must still eat. So when prices go up and people have not got income, what will happen to them? Their standard of living will fall. So this is what we should be expecting, or what we have today now.
Mr. Kariwa, are these causes linked across all the food crops, or does it affect only specific food crops? Because we notice there's an increase in the prices of yam, tomatoes, rice, maize. Are these the same causes that run through all of them?
You know, in January, when His Excellency the President was giving the State of the Nation address, he did indicate that rice production went up by 48%, and the maize was 110%. He also indicated that Ghana was exporting tomatoes to our neighboring countries, tomatoes and then plantain. We doubted all that, but unfortunately, those who are supposed to give the president information gave him wrong information. Ghana never exported tomatoes to any country. We are rather importing. So you can just see that there's a complete disconnect between the figures and what is on the ground. Even where it is obvious, we are still told that we are exporting tomatoes. When we knew around that time that Ghanaian importers, the market women who go to Burkina Faso to buy the tomatoes, has created problems where armed robbers were shooting at them and then killing the drivers and so on. We went on demonstration. We all saw that. Yet, we were made to understand that in spite of all that, we were net exporters of tomatoes. So the price of tomatoes will go up, price of rice will go up. The other thing is that you know that these foodstuffs are their substitutes. So if you cannot get maize, certainly you eat rice. If your preference is food and you cannot get the banku, you eat rice. So if there is no maize, you should understand that
the demand for rice then goes up.
Will go up. The demand for yam will go up. But you see, what has befallen maize in terms of production has also befallen the other crops. So if one crop is not doing well in terms of output, you don't expect the other crops to do well. For instance, rice also needs fertilizer. So currently there's no fertilizer. So if there's no fertilizer for maize and the output of maize falls because there's no fertilizer, certainly you should expect things to happen to what? Rice. And you should expect things to happen to soybean because they all need fertilizer. So you see that when we catch one problem, it becomes a microcosm of whatever happens within the agricultural sector. So we are in for a shortage, and for me, we should be asking government, now that we are all aware that there's the permanent shortage, where it's going to come, what is in place to mitigate that? And they should be telling us.
Mr. Kariwa, you mentioned the importation of tomatoes, and I'm just curious. We import tomatoes from countries like Burkina, which is a very arid country. How are we not able, because we are relatively less arid, why aren't we able to produce what we are importing?
You see, we are not permitted to produce tomatoes. Just the same way as we are not committed to producing enough maize for ourselves. The reality is this. If you go to Burkina Faso, as you did indicate, their soil fertility is lower than ours. They have less water. Tomatoes is one crop that needs a lot of water. And then their climate change is worse than we have in Ghana.
That's my point, Mr. Kariwa. You say if you go to Burkina, they have less water than Ghana does. Ghana has more water than Burkina. How are they producing more tomatoes than us and even exporting to us?
I'm saying that we are simply not permitted to producing tomatoes, for instance. Just as we are not permitted to becoming self-sufficient in the production of any of the crops.
We're not permitted by who?
You know, when I say we are not committed, it's
right.
Yeah, we are not committed. We are not committed because if you look at what is in the country, I mean, there are different names for tomatoes, canned tomatoes in the country, which are Ghanaian names. Where do they get their tomatoes from? It means we import it, and they just prepare the tomato puree from outside, and just come and can it here and label it as produced in Ghana. You know? So we are simply, massaging the problem, claiming that things are happening, and it is not happening well. The planning for food and jobs was claimed to be very, very successful. But fortunately or unfortunately, the Honorable Minister himself came out to say that, look, the planning for food and jobs is struggling to survive because they own fertilizer and they're not able to pay. I mean, this complaint will not be to you or to me or to anybody. Because you don't even have that amount of money and you have no solution to it. They created it and they should be providing a solution rather than telling us problems.
You see, Mr. Kare, there are many factors that make the present situation a bit difficult to understand. Because let me just go through a few figures that were also released in May, just 2 months ago. And inflation fell to 7.5% in May 2021. Now, the rate of increase in prices of goods and services was also reported to be slowing down. If you look at the figures, these come from the Ghana Statistical Service. Inflation eased considerably by 1% to 7.5% in May 2021. This signaled a decrease in cost of credit, all things being equal. And so the fall in inflation meant that the rate at which prices of some goods and services are increasing slows down. That was the expectation. Now, food inflation particularly is spoken to here, where fruit and vegetables as well as soft drinks slowed down considerably in May 2021, despite 7 subclasses recording inflation higher than the overall food inflation of 5.4%. Now, according to figures by the Ghana Statistical Service, still, food inflation was 5.4 in May 2021, which was lower than 6.5 recorded in April 2021. So between April and May, there was a decrease in inflation of food prices. And non-food inflation was 9.2%, also lower than 10.2% recorded the previous month. When we look at all these figures that were put forward by the Statistical Service, the expectation would be that it would translate into food prices, especially over time. But we're looking at just 2 months between that, and we see a very high increase, which means an upward revision in the price of food crops. How do we explain these two variations?
Well, there are 2 ways to explain it. There's a class of Ghanaians who would like to keep these figures for the purpose of academic work. If you're a student, you use this. But I don't think that these figures matter to the consumer. You know, and I believe that if you go to the market or on the street to ask people whether they believe in the inflation figures that have been churning out, they will tell you that they don't believe in it. Because those ones, when they talk about the inflation, what is on the ground is different. But of course, theoretically, and then that is the only institution that we should go for our figures. And I will not want to challenge them and say this. But then, if these are their figures, and then there's a difference on the ground, then they should come and then help us to resolve that challenge. Otherwise, the people who are on the street, who are in Makola, who are everywhere, they don't care about inflation. What they care about is that they care about when they go to the market, what the price is. And that's what I'm saying. If you're a student, of course, you should pick the figures and see that inflation is coming down. And that is good for the country. But practically, it is not so. The market is a different thing altogether. And I'm saying that, you see, I'm so much worried that we do not appear to know what problem we want to solve. We should not be interested in figures. We should be interested in letting the people on the ground tell us what it is. For instance, the Minister of Agriculture needed not to have come to tell us that the production of maize has gone up more than 100%. They should let the people on the ground tell us whether you now have maize, is the price coming down? But you see, they insist that they have more than doubled the production of maize for 2020. But while they were saying that, the price of maize on the ground was going up. And I don't know who we want to serve. Whose interest do we serve? Who are we working for? We are working to solve problems for our people. And when the life is getting tougher for our people, we should look at our policies again and then see where there are weaknesses so that we can deal with them. The very disturbing point is that when you say a policy has delivered and is doing well, then you constrain yourself to try to examine it again to find weaknesses because it's already functioning well. If you have your car and your car has no problem, will you take it to a mechanic? No. But if you sincerely believe that there's a problem with your car, then you will now be made to take the car to the mechanics to examine it. So if the policies are doing well, the figures, then how can the same people now try to say that the policies are not doing well? But we, those who are the beneficiaries and then bear the brunt of the policies, are saying that we are not seeing the results to be what they are saying it is. And today, fortunately, the minister who has given the figures that maize has gone up over 100%, came to now tell us that even fertilizer that they borrow, they cannot pay it. And they don't pay it. The Minister for Finance is not paying it. I mean, to come and tell us this, it's worrying, it's disturbing. And we think that we should leave the figures aside and let us solve the problem as it is. Because the figures are one thing, which is theoretical. What is on the ground is practical. And we need to solve the needs of our people.
Edward, can this be in any way attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic? Because we saw that production slowed down during the lockdown.
You know, you need to also know how the gestation period. We have a cycle for our production. We have the production happens twice in a year, particularly for the southern sector of the country. And I'm saying that when did we get the pandemic? It started in March, April last year, 2020. Then the lockdown came. Then when we were complaining that there were problems with the price in the market, the minister himself came out and said, no, if you go to the markets, you can even get a bunch of plantain for 3 cities, 4 cities. And we challenged him, he insisted. He wanted to tell us that COVID did not affect production. If COVID did not affect production, then how can we today now be attributed to COVID? In any case, by the end of the year, that's 2020, that is 8 months after we start the lockdown, that is March, April, we start the lockdown, in December, he was telling us that maize production has gone up by over 100%. That tells us that COVID did not affect it. So if today, it should not be part of the analysis or the challenges, the problems, or the causes that might have led to a shortage of food in this country. Because it's not part of the discussion from what they are telling us.
Zakaria, so you're saying throughout this period, when your concerns began, you communicated to the Ministry of Food and Agriculture?
We did all that.
What responses did you get?
Well, they challenge it. They don't agree to it. And you are a media person, and you said in the media, and I say things that people, when they go to the market, is different. They don't accept. If they had accepted it, because all of us are interested in the welfare of the people. The mere fact that one becomes a public official does not give that person all the knowledge or make that person having the country at heart more than any other person. All of us are concerned about this country, We are concerned, we are interested in the development of this country. We are concerned with our people. So it's unfortunate that it's becoming a common feature in Canada. Policymakers, they do the right thing. They are interested in the welfare of the country more than any other person, just because you are not a policymaker. We make all those things, issues known to the ministry, but the ministry did not accept. And they reject the idea, saying that no, we are just naysayers, we are just saying what is not it. Because if you go to the market, the price of maize, the price of plantain, you can get it at 2 cities, 3 cities, a bunch of it. And that there's enough food in the country. They came out with the figures. You see, so it isn't that we have not told them, they are aware.
What could they have done that could have changed the situation as we're experiencing it now? Because you say if you inform them and ask them to make an intervention, what intervention would have been appropriate when you inform them?
You see, one of the things, best way to solve a problem is to try and know the magnitude of the problem.
Okay.
When you accept the magnitude of the problem, then you now know how you are going to provide a particular solution to it. You know, when we have malaria, we go to the hospital. They even want to know the acute nature of it, whether it is plus or whatever and so on, so that they can administer the proper medication for you. Now, if we are saying that we don't have a problem, or the problem is just a minor one, then the solutions we'll give to it will be to deal with the minor issue. Meanwhile, the issue is bigger than that. So what I'm saying is that today, now that the ministry has come out to admit that they are not even able to pay fertilizers that they have distributed to, they have gotten from suppliers, and that the Platform for Food and Jobs program is in trouble, that is a good admission. It's coming from them. But that is not enough. They should let we, the stakeholders who are in it, sit down and look at, dispassionately, appropriate solutions going into the future. But if they just come and tell us this, and then you want to meet with them, and they don't give you that chance, or they are not open or ready to discuss the matter dispassionately, but still hold on to the fact that, oh, I've got the mandate to do this, I've got the resources to do this, I've got the power to do this, so let me do what I know, and then I know better. I have the men and women all over the country. We don't sit in Accra alone. We speak to all manner of people on the ground to the top. So we are not, and we also roam around. Last week I was in Western region. I spent my whole week in Western region, and I've seen a whole lot of things. Another week I'm going to another region. Not only one fiscal presence, but even the people on the ground. So the solution is simple. First, we admit that there's a problem. Let's look at the magnitude of the problem, and then two, we should now all allow the appropriate stakeholders to sit down and propose solutions for those problems.
Right. And at this point, can we still go back and put together the stakeholders to sit down and prefer a solution to this problem that we are facing?
Yes, this problem we are facing today may get worse if we don't tackle it. If we don't solve it, it will get worse. It's not a type of problem that is time-bound, and that when you allow it to exist for some time, it will disappear by itself. It's not time-bound. It will get worse. So we may not be able to do what has already happened. We can only be able to prevent future occurrence of it or mitigate future occurrence of it. And that is what we should be looking up to.
Mr. Kariwa, I was rather expecting it would get better, especially as more crops are cultivated.
Come again?
I was expecting the situation to rather get better. On what basis do you think it's going to get worse?
When there's no fertilizer for the farmers to use, output will fall. And when output falls, there will be less food in the market. So prices will go up. So simple.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Edward Kariwa. He's General Secretary of the Ghana Agricultural Workers Union, painting a not very pleasant picture there of food crop prices, and also intimating that they might just increase as the months go on, especially if the Ministry of Agri does not step in with a very comprehensive intervention to ensure that these food crop prices we're experiencing are scaled downwards. You're still watching Spotlight. We're discussing the increase in food prices in the markets, which have become very disturbing for everyone. We'll go for this quick break, and when we come back, the conversation continues. Stay with us.
Opinions are like onions. Everybody has one.
Abortion is a no-no. As a human being, you must take responsibility for all your actions and inactions. Your misjudgment shouldn't be enough grounds to take a life.
No. I disagree with you because look, if you do not legalize it, people will go to quack doctors anyway who might end up not just kill the baby but the mother as well.
Why should I waste my time, join a long queue under the hot sun to vote for a political party, knowing very well that nothing would be achieved at the end of the day?
Something will be achieved. It's your civic responsibility to turn out to vote. Vote and vote for a good leader.
Governments need to cater to every graduate, diversify the economy, invest in other sectors.
But the government cannot do it all. That is why we need the youth to take up the mantle and set up their own businesses. That is how we will create economic viability.
Here on Opposing Views, we take your views, my views, and the views of the experts and put them in the right context for you, our discerning viewers.
Welcome back to Spotlight. Before we went on that break, we're discussing rising food prices. Now, we have just joined, we've just been joined by food analyst, security expert, Adam Bona. He's going to be telling us the impact of all of this on food security. He's a security analyst. His name is Adam Bona. And we are examining all the aspects and the impact that the increase in food prices is having on the economy and on the people. And of course, there's a security angle. Now, when we look at security, what is the impact of rising food prices on security? Because there's an aspect of it which deals with food security. So, Adam Bona.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you so much for joining us. So, we're just looking at the security angle of the increase in food prices, and we're hoping we could get some comments on that.
Well, technically what it means is that, our ability to feed ourselves should there be any crisis. And so if you want to refer to how long can we hang on, let's say there is a disaster and we are, on an island where the neighboring countries cannot, let's say Burkina Faso, there is terrorism going on. All our neighbors seem to be in one, call it security crisis or the other. Obviously, it would have a telling effect on us as a nation if we cannot produce our own food, because then the food chain or the supply chain when it comes to food somehow is destabilized. And so then what happens is that we will begin to fight among ourselves. If you remember, during COVID, when the president, through an executive instrument, imposed, a curfew, the lockdown, you remember how for just that time, we just couldn't survive. If that curfew had traveled for in excess of, what the president did, probably they would have been call it civil disobedience. Then people have run out of food. People will begin to break into warehouses because then our ability to feed ourselves was tilted around that time.
It's lower.
It's lower. Our ability to feed ourselves, using our own sources or our own food or imported food, whichever you want to call it, is stock. when it comes to food as against the population. Once the ratio is nothing to write home about, then you know that if there is any disaster, then we are going to be, in more trouble.
Found wanting. Now, Mr. Bona, I don't know if you've been following the increase in food crop prices in recent times. There's been about a bit over 100% increase in food prices compared to this time last year for major crops like maize, yam, rice, tomatoes in the markets have all experienced a rapid rise in price, which of course translates into a higher cost for everyone else involved, because we all eat food no matter what we want to do. Now, how does the population get affected by this?
Well, the moment prices of food, these are, the basic necessities of life. And so once it begins to go up as against, call it salary or monument or whatever you want to call it, wages, then you will know that the basic standard of living will definitely diminish or it would reduce. And when you have a country like ours, where the standard of living continues to dwindle, then chances are that you only need, a match. You need to light a match and there will be, chaos. And so if you ask me, I would say Ghana is not, living in its own on an island. It is a world phenomenon. I am an importer. I mean, we basically technically import all the, commodities systems we use for the businesses we do. And in the past, one would have said that these items were quoted in dollars, and so for sometimes 10 years, 15 years, you will not see any significant price increase. But as we speak, prices, anytime we want to import, prices have increased. If you come to our own backyard, are we able to manufacture fertilizers to be able to get enough produce for what probably we are supposed to
for the demand on the market?
Yes, we are not able to import the number of fertilizers that are supposed to come in, coupled with the fact that Galamsey has also destroyed most of the arable lands we had. Most of the arable lands or most of the fertile lands we had have all been polluted. The young men who were supposed to be tilling the soil and planting the maize and yam and all that for us to eat have all left probably where I come from. I'm from the Upper West, and I do believe you are from the Upper West too. Most of these young men have gone into areas like dollar land, gone to, areas in, other areas where they could dig gold. And so there's gold everywhere in this country. So they've left farming and they've gone into Galamsey. We don't eat gold.
Mr. Bona, it looks like this is a multi-dimensional issue, and this is just like a culmination of different issues that have led to this, and we are now feeling the effect.
Yes, it is because I keep talking about the national security. These are some of the intel national security should be taken, that from what we are looking at, the number of able young men who are moving, how many young people who in the past would have been tilling the soil have moved from the farming communities or turned their farms into Galamsey lands. And vis-a-vis how, if you look at the call it the civil unrest that is happening in Burkina, we used to import a lot of tomatoes, a lot of, onions and peppers and the rest from Burkina, Niger, and all these countries. They've been cut off, so they cannot bring them in again. Coupled with the fact that we have our own, challenges when it comes to Galamsey, destroying the soil, and those who are supposed to be farming have moved into Galamsey. So if we don't deal with it, the telling effect, the telling effect that is going to have on us is that it's just a trigger, and you will see maybe a semblance of what is taking place. If you look at South Africa, they've looted everything and gone into the harbor to loot containers. That is what it means, because then they have gone too long into lockdown and COVID protocols and the rest. We are a bit lucky because then maybe a lot of things have worked in our call it in a way positively. But that is not to say that food prices, I mean, I don't go to the market, but my household will tell you that things they used to buy for 15 cedis, you go and the same thing has gone up to 45 cedis, and incomes have not gone up, salaries have not gone up. So what then happens? It's going to definitely affect standard of living, and when standard of living is affected in any country like ours, that is in a developing stage, chances are that it's just a trigger and we will go into some chaos if things are not put well.
Mr. Bona, when we talk about the involvement of stakeholders, at this point where we are already experiencing the hike in prices, we're speaking to Mr. Edward Kariwa earlier, and he was also talking about stakeholder and government intervention. How does government come in issues such as these?
Well, I think government can come in intentionally. Government can come in and look at the shortfall. When we talk about shortfall, what are the areas that probably we are impacted so much when it comes to eating? For instance, yam. What are the alternatives to yam? What are the alternatives to, what do you call that, maize?
Maize, rice.
Maize and all that. Just I have my backyard, I have some poultry in my backyard. And I recently needed to buy some chicken feed. And it took me 2 weeks. I couldn't find chicken feed in Accra to buy. I simply couldn't, and the chicken feed I used to buy per bag for 132 cedis, when finally the chicken feed came in, I had to pay 65 Ghana cedis in the space of 2 weeks or so. So 162 cedis for a bag. So then the question I asked is that, what are we doing? We need to fix it. So it needs to take all the stakeholders, the farmers, we are not into large-scale mechanized farming. Ours is peasant farming. But how have we aided the peasant farmers? And the peasant farmers themselves, when fertilizers are given to them or distributors are supposed to be distributed to the peasant farmers, does the fertilizers end up going to the right people, or it is smuggled across the neighboring borders? So there has to be an intentional way of saying that some food substitution would have to take place. Can we say we have a certain amount of, we have a stockpile of this food, so can we begin to eat this whilst we begin to wait for this food to start coming, or to, they getting, harvesting a particular type of food? We haven't been too good when it comes to that. And in terms, I think we had a buffer stock. I don't know what happened to the buffer stock, because the intention was for these people to buy food products from the farmers and stock them, so that gradually they release them in the market when prices are affected.
To
so
keep prices stable. Okay.
They haven't been able to do that. So my point here is that you can see a lot of people are hungry, and when people are hungry, what happens is that they end up getting very, very angry.
A hungry man is an angry man.
Yes, so I want to see the leaders of this country taking some precautionary measures, or else what is happening in South Africa is just, excuse me to say, one madman who says something and everybody follows. The young people who are already angry or hungry and, get to be angry, get on the street and begins to, the little food that we have in our malls and in the market, they begin to destroy and, loot them. We will not survive if we get to that point. So I think that we need to begin to engage, because food prices are skyrocketing. Everything is going up. Fuel prices going up. Everything is just going up. So I think something would have to give, or else the situation, that nothing is going to change as we find ourselves now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adam Bona. He's a security expert, and he was giving us the linkage there between food and security. And then we realized that there's actually a thing that is food security, which affects the general security of the nation. And we know in recent times we've had a lot of disturbances where security in Ghana is concerned. Now, Mr. Bona further links this to a loss in arable land, and also a lot of youth going into Galamsey, leaving agriculture and going into Galamsey, further creating a shortage there in the manpower needed to power agriculture and to produce more food. So, of course, eventually there's a decline in production. He also links it to instability in the countries where we previously used to import, for example, Burkina, and neighboring countries where now there's a bit of conflict, and so it affects the movement of food crops from those areas into Ghana. So of course, the level of food crop supposed to be in the market is affected, and then we find that this reduces the general level of food available to the people. Now, when the level of food available to the people is reduced, what does it do? It means that the standard of living reduces because people begin to substitute. If people, imagine having to look for a substitute to tomatoes because you go to the market and tomatoes is so expensive. You either reduce the amount of tomatoes you're using, which means that your soups or your sauces reduce in content and then increase in water. This creates also links a lot. The linkages are many. It might cause malnutrition and all of that. It also means that more people are poorer than before. You especially are poorer than you used to be, because if you used to have, if your take-home salary or your disposable income is 300 cedis, and out of that 300 cedis, you're able to buy a certain amount of goods and services. It means relatively, you're no longer able to command the same amount of goods and services. And what it does is that it makes you poorer because you are relatively unable to get what you used to get, to afford what you used to afford, to eat what you used to eat. And that's not a very good thing for the security of the people. It also means that more people begin to agitate, because as people get poorer, inequality rises and they start to agitate. People become more aggressive. If you listened to Adam Bona, he made it very clear that when people get unduly hungry, they become very angry. And we have the angry man, hungry man is an angry man saying to buttress this. And then it becomes very, very sensitive all around for everyone. I'm also going to take a bit of statistics from a few years ago, in 2016 specifically, but this has not been updated yet. At that point, 5% of Ghana's population was food insecure. It would be important to find out exactly what percentage of Ghana's population is food insecure now. And at that point, it was 2 million people who were vulnerable and had become food insecure. And presently, we'll be looking to the Ministry of Agriculture, who we tried to reach anyway, but they failed to attend the invitation. We also reached out to Isoko. Isoko was supposed to be here to speak to the specific levels that we are experiencing and the variations in food prices, because they usually have so much more of that data. It's their specific area. Unfortunately, Isoko did not make it. I want to believe some of them are also busy enjoying the Eid holidays. So on behalf of everyone here at MX24 Television, we want to thank you for your time. Thank you for staying with us throughout this 1 hour of Spotlight. We still want to know how the rising food prices have affected you. We're still online at MX24GH on all social media. Get interactive and let us know. My name is Nwang Falong. Once again, a very happy Eid Mubarak to you. May your homes be filled with love and abundance and happiness. Good evening.
Angelina, you be cool in my temperature. If you call, say cheese, take a picture. Shaka post, make a see, take a picture. And I like book, boah. Why the party there today? Hey mama, hey I have a sip. Shake your
Wagwan, my people, welcome to X Cave.
The boys' body count and the girls' body count matter differently.
Wow, ladies.
Probably an experience, something that happened.
Is it a deal breaker in a relationship?
No.
The X Cave, and this show focuses on topics that are hot on the lips of our young people and presents it in an open, honest conversation.
Oh, look at him, he's crying, he's such a girl.
In other words, there are no liars on our show.